All right, welcome to episode 10 of Marketing Operators. We talk all things conversion rate optimization. Connor Rowland walks us through selling 6 figures post-purchase. I talk about selling 7 figures worth of pens, my passion project within Ridge, and I also talk about my deep admiration for the dark patterns of web design that we're not implementing, I can say from a legal perspective. So make sure to like and subscribe, share with your e-com teams, and as always, thank you to our sponsors, Motion, Aftersell, Haus, and Richpanel. So I'm constantly asking my teams the same question. I'm saying, how do we make ads that convert? What's the content? What's the creative? What's our strategy so that we can make ads that convert users into customers? Luckily, our premier sponsor is here to help, Motion. They are a creative analytics tool. We use them. Hexclad uses them. Jones Road uses them. Viore, True Classic, all of the big 9-figure heavy hitter D2C brands rely on Motion to give their teams more analytical rigor when it comes to creating content. And when they're asking themselves, how do we create ads that convert? Motion's here to help even more. They've got a weekly Thursday seminar called Make Ads That Convert, aptly named. They've got some great people, Morella Carespi, Dara Denny, Jess Bachman, Savannah Sanchez, all people that I've looked up to for a long time when it comes to performance creative. And they'll be teaching some of the best in class practices and strategies when it comes to creating ads. So make sure to join at motionapp.com. They've got a few sessions left. And for the ones that you have missed, there are recordings that you can check out. So make sure you do. And thanks for listening. All right. So for everyone tuning in, it's Memorial Day, May 27th. Cody, Connor, what are you guys doing to enjoy the day off?
Well, what's more American than recording a podcast on a Memorial Day? I mean, it doesn't get better than that. It's like hot dogs, beer.
We moved our recording schedule around just to put it on Memorial Day. That's how passionate we are about it. Yeah. What about you, Cody?
Yeah, man, I'm honored. You guys could be like slinging high noons, having some hot dogs by a barbecue, but instead you're here talking about marketing with me. So I really appreciate that. That's great.
Today we're talking conversion rate optimization, which leads us into our third or fourth, I'm beginning to lose track, but our weekly test of the week. Connor Rowland's given us a rundown of a CRO related test he ran recently. Give us the rundown.
Yeah. So, in lieu of us talking CRO this week, I thought it'd be a great time to chat about a recent test we did with Aftersell, one of the sponsors of the pod. So first off, just to give some context into some year-to-date analytics for us and what Aftersell has done. So as a reminder, Aftersell, post-purchase, one-click upsells and cross-sells. You do not need to go back through the purchase flow. It takes that information. You make the consumer makes the clicks, adds it right to that order. It's really awesome. Obviously, these are people that have already converted. So at this point, it's just incremental revenue. So it's 6 figures year-to-date so far, only through Aftersell revenue, which is incredible to think about. And on that 6 figures of revenue, we have $156 average order value just on the upsell component. So I think that speaks to the type of volume that this can add to your business. But this test that we did, so traditionally with Aftersell, we have a very, it's an area we hadn't optimized a ton. We had a kind of like a blanket cross-sell flow that we were using, like market basket analysis, to inform which products we cross-sold on our most popular first order products. So what we did this time around is we just wanted to start optimizing it and like test into the most whatever's the best revenue driving cross-sell flow possible. So what we did first was we wanted to get a sense of what's going to work better for us. Is it this lower value product or a higher value product, assuming that the conversion rate on the lower value product will be much higher than this higher value product. So that's exactly what we did for this cross-sell test number 1. It was the hot mitt and trivet duo, very complementary to a lot of our core pots and pan sets, versus the double burner griddle. The hot mitts and trivets had a much higher conversion rate as this $200 griddle, as you can imagine. But ultimately, that AOV bump drove a 44% higher revenue per user than the hot mitts and trivet. And then the iteration number 2 on that, we did, all right, let's do a high value product versus another high value popular product. We did the double burner griddle versus the hybrid pizza steel. Double burner griddle won out again at a higher revenue per user. And then we have this they have this downsell kind of feature. So if someone, denies one of your higher value cross sells, you can make a little bit of an easier to buy cross-sell. So now we're using that high conversion rate Oven Mitts and Trivis Duo as that downsell offer. So just like really excited to see, us testing into a better cross-sell. There's an unlimited amount of direction we can go and optimizations we can make to continue to test into it in using those market basket analyses as like the starting point. But yeah, really, really excited to see the overall performance there and starting to get, a more optimized version of that. And it's an initiative I've continued to push our website team on to continue testing into the best cross-sell flow possible.
That's rad. Do you guys have the same upsell and then downsell across all new customers, or like what does the segmentation look like?
So right now I need to check in with our web team because this is one that we just tested into across our Mother's Day sale. So I'm not 100% sure like how extensively we rolled it out yet. That'll be the plan, I think, at least on our core products, like our core, called the top 5 to 10 first order products. But ultimately, like I really want to get super segmented here and look at market basket analyses on, hey, if you buy the 12-piece set, what's the next like 10 products you're most likely to buy, and test into the best version there. Do the same thing for chicken fry, do the same thing for knives, because all these products are going to have very different consumer journeys. So as of now, it's fairly general and blanketed, but I'm hoping, 3, 6, 9, 12 months from now will be pretty segmented by product.
And are you seeing a better revenue per visitor on those ones, on like the specific ones based on that analysis?
Yeah, with that first test, it was better.
I got to do that. I only have a catch-all. We just have one up. We've done a few, but we've kind of been the same way where it's like very set it and forget it. But I was just checking, pretty significant, not quite 6 figures, but pretty high 5 figures of additional revenue, incremental revenue from.
But that's the beauty
from last 30. Oh, actually, that was last 30. So year to date, it's definitely 6. But yeah, we've barely done anything with it.
That's the beauty of Aftersell, right? Of like you can say, hey, it takes probably 30 minutes to roll out. And you can have a very general cross upsell flow, or you can spend a lot of time testing into it, regardless of where you're at on the spectrum. It's still really high performing.
Yeah, we're in the same bucket of having said it and forgotten it. There's like pros and cons to that. It's just making money for us.
We are sorry. No, but actually that shows the value of it though, like how easy it is to get live and still get. Yeah.
That's my point. But we actually ran an interesting test. Maybe you guys could get it on your roadmap, but we because obviously the default, like the easiest way to set it up is you just plug in a product. It pulls in the variant images. It might pull in the description. You get the add to cart button at the end. We actually built out like a custom one that was product specific and used a bunch of lifestyle imagery. So it was like a landing page we built post purchase. We saw like a 40% higher attachment rate on that, which could be pretty cool for you guys, Connor.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So, all right, cool. Another solid test of the week. It teases up and it's going to feel like we're backtracking a little bit. We want to talk about conversion rate optimization this week. We're already well into it, talking about revenue per session, A/B testing, and post-purchase upsells, et cetera. But to take us back to the very beginning, CRO, very popular term in the industry. Connor, how would you define it for people?
I saw this in the outline today, and I was thinking this, and I was thinking about how much of a smart ass I wanted to be. Because in theory, you could define any growth tactic as a conversion rate optimization play, right? Like ultimately, if you create a new ad funnel that drives super high intent, and those folks, because you increase the intent, compared to your average, traffic base, that should bump conversion rate. And, you could technically call it a conversion rate optimization play in the context of what we're talking about today, specifically related to the website. I define it as anything geared towards A, increasing your conversion rate, or B, increasing your average order value. And ultimately, both of those are kind of the derivatives, the variables that go into this, what I look at as like the gold standard metric for CRO initiatives, which is revenue per user or revenue per site visitor.
Totally. Actually, look, we could jam on this for a little bit, I think, because like where does CRO start and stop? And I guess the way that we've thought about it is like post-click, right? Like if I'm our ecom manager or web product manager, I am receiving traffic from these different channels. They have some amount of assumptions. Given all that information, I now have a set of tools that I can use to optimize, price, margin, AOV. We can get into all the details of that. I have I used a metaphor recently that I liked, but I think of CRO almost as like a dam like something that holds back water to generate energy, whereas the paid media team might be like a river or a basin or something like that. And what CRO is trying to make as efficient of a dam as possible. You're getting all this traffic, all of this this force from this body of water, and it's your job to generate energy from that. So there's maybe a little bit more ethereal way of thinking about it.
You're a big metaphor guy, I'm realizing.
I was gonna say we gotta, like, the operators has their panzerisms, and Connor's been ripping metaphors that are awesome. Like we gotta come up with a label for these metaphors that Connor's been ripping, because this is it's just one after the other. These are bangers. I love it.
Well, yeah, so that's what I got. Cody, how are you guys thinking about it? Would you define it any other way?
I'm cool with the term CRO. I know a lot of people are like pushing back on it because they're like, you're not trying to improve conversion rate. You're trying to get, revenue per session. Like then if you take it a step further, you're trying to get gross profit per session, but like no one's going to call it like GPRO. So I'm cool with conversion rate, but obviously that's what you're looking to do. Like Connor said, you're really trying to find the right balance between, revenue, conversion rate and AOV to get revenue per session, revenue per click, whatever you want to call it. And then I think taking a step further, if you are going to be testing anything that actually impacts margin, like we test shipping options a lot, or if you're testing, upselling or like gamification by adding a discount, you've really got to pay attention to how that discounting is interacting. Because maybe you're bumping up AOV, but maybe you're actually decreasing margin. So I'm totally fine with calling it CRO. But yeah, excited to learn from you guys about it, because it's something we are going to place a lot more emphasis on. I don't think we've done as much as we should. So I'm excited to learn how you guys do it and structure it.
Yeah, awesome. All right, cool. So I wanted to kick off with just like the teams and structures and workflows that like Connor, I'd love to start with you, like how you guys are thinking about it at Hexclad. So just walk us through like what's the setup? What's the stack?
Yeah. So team wise, it's a combo of internal and external. So we have our website doesn't roll up to growth. It rolls up to our chief information officer, and then there's a dotted line into growth. I was actually talking about Cody in the last few weeks. I think we're going to hire a probably like senior manager of CRO that does report into growth, because I think it's something we've gotten better at in the last year and a half, 2 years, but I still think we're probably operating our CRO at like a 4 or 5 out of 10. I just think there's so much room to continue to be better there. So that's probably on the roadmap, but ultimately it's the head of website and his team of 2 devs under him. We do use a dev agency. We use Van Group that does a lot of dev and design work for us. Ultimately, our internal team are the ones taking these tests and setting them up in convert.com. As far as road mapping goes, it's a collaboration between myself, our head of website, and our chief information officers. He's involved very often too. And we've kind of just create this like roadmap, this project management board that lives in Monday. We're migrating to ClickUp, but we kind of have this running list of CRO test ideas across, homepage, collection page, product page, checkout, and then any sort of landing pages that we're running paid media to. And then we're basically meeting, every 2 weeks just to, basically check in on existing tests. We'll have like, I just looked before this, we have like 7 different tests running right now across our core website plus landing pages. So we'll basically meet every 2 weeks, then review the results there, decide if there's any follow-up tests warranted, decide if any of the tests like aren't valid for some reason, and then review the roadmap and kind of decide what we want to implement next. So that's the general flow and structure of it. But yeah, areas to improve is just like, I think having someone 40 hours a week focused on ideation, owning the production of these tests, the analysis, the next steps because of that analysis is 100% warranted. Some of the lifts that these tests drive are huge. And then you start doing the math on it, and it's like hundreds of thousands of dollars of incremental revenue compared to the variant that was running. So that's how we're doing it now. And that's a little preview to probably what's to come, I would hope, in the next, 3 months or so.
So the head of the website reports into the CIO, but they like, what are they typically optimizing towards? I imagine it looks a lot like growth goals. Like they're looking at conversion rate and AOV and things like that.
For the CRO stuff, yeah, absolutely. And that's why I'm like, I don't necessarily like that they report into the CIO, because that's why I want this CRO lead, because I want that person's like goals to be like, I want them to own conversion rate and own AOV, and ultimately give them like hey, I want you to launch this many tests this year that drive a positive lift in our revenue per user. So that's why I'm like not super that's why I say, like, I think we're running at like a 4 or 5 out of 10 right now, because there's a little bit of like convolution in terms of like him reporting into the CIO doesn't necessarily incentivize him to focus. Like, there's a lot of website work that he has to do, right? It's like CRO is a small part of just the overall website management. There's so much technical upkeep going on every single day. So that's why I'm like, I think we need someone under the growth team that's like really 100% push towards these metrics.
Makes total sense. Cody, what does it look like at Jones Road?
Can I ask Connor a question first?
Yeah.
So tell me about the process, like who's deving it. So like, tell me about like a test. I know how we do it and we'll share, but like from start to finish, like who's designing? A CRO agency designing, or your internal team designing? What's the process for dev as well?
We don't have any internal web designers. That's another one on my short list. I think with the amount of things we're doing right now across paid media, landers and our core site CRO, we need one. I love Van Group. They have awesome designers and developers. So they're doing, 100% of our web design right now. And then the dev is, they work on a per hours basis. Like you essentially buy hours for them. So the dev is very, it depends on the level of complication. Like if it's something that we have, functionality for internally already, our internal dev team will handle it. If it's like a net new, fairly complicated, time intensive, new functionality of our site, then they'll do that as well. So that's about, 50-50 who devs it, they design all of it. And then we are typically, setting up all the tests ourselves in convert.com and making sure it's all, set up kosher.
Makes sense. Okay. Makes sense. Yeah. I would say very similar. So we don't currently have anybody in like an e-commerce role we're hiring. So if you're listening to this, you want to work for us, we're hiring either a director of e-commerce or like we're kind of switching it a little bit to like I can kind of share why, but more of like a senior manager of digital product. Because I think there's probably a lot. What I've learned a little bit, and this is very much off the course of where we're going with this, is like director of e-commerce means something very different at different companies. Like if you're a director of e-commerce at like a L'Oreal brand or like a majority retail brand, like you're really like owning the entire e-com P&L. You're like, you've got like marketing, you pretty much got all digital and growth reporting into you. So we've gotten a lot of applicants that way. But also as we've talked about, a lot of it kind of like probably your current position, a lot of e-commerce directors are like very much like Shopify site maintenance, like e-commerce operations. They're getting everything built out. They're making sure the tech is integrated, uploading all the new stuff, but they're not necessarily, it's a different skill set than doing like the hardcore testing that, that we're talking about and you and I are looking for. But we're, because we try to be lean, we are going to make it one role, but I think we're going to go with a little bit of bias to like the digital product background, because there's so much project management that's involved in a process like this. They've got to be,
it's
even
insane.
if this person, doesn't have direct reports, they're still like cross-functionally managing design. They're managing the process. They're managing the roadmap. They're communicating to engineers. Like there's so much of that that's kind of where we're thinking with our background. So we have worked with agencies. So we have a dev agency we work with. They don't do any CRO, but we have a dev agency we work with. We do design in-house currently. And then we work with an agency. We just started with a new one, actually, who's really good. Mainly on roadmap. They do some of the dev. So what we'll do, we used to use Convert. I was so about it. We started using Shoplift, which I actually love. It's like built for Shopify. It's so easy to test things. You can like duplicate themes. You can do a lot with no code. But what we'll do is we'll align on the roadmap together. Kind of like the CRO guy will do an audit, like he actually last week walked us through an entire audit. We took that internally myself. And then we have like a marketing ops team who kind of like helps coordinate a lot of the things on the site. We put that into a roadmap. We decided to put it into a spreadsheet, but very similar thing to, what you've got with Monday. I think if you guys want to talk about this at all, like the prioritization framework, like, we use like an ICE framework. So it's impact, confidence, effort. So ideally, you're trying to find things that are high impact. So it'll be able to move, the needle a lot on the metrics you care about. Low lift or low effort means it's really easy to do. You don't need to build a huge thing. You don't have to get a huge design done, and then high confidence as well. And so hopefully you can get some quick wins. You can get something where you're low lifter effort, high impact, high confidence, and you want to start with those. Like we're about to test like swatch sizes bigger on the PDP. And like, we're pretty confident in that. We think that'll have a pretty good impact, but like, we don't need to go and go to our design team and actually request anything. Like you can just mess around with the theme code and just bump up CSS. Like I could probably do that. contrary, you may get some things that are like very high lift effort. Like you might have to design a whole new PDP or a whole new homepage section or something like that. So that's going to take a time. Like, I don't know for you guys, but that might take a week, 2 weeks, to go through design and then dev as well. And then you don't know if it's going to work. A lot of times those bigger swings will have higher impact if it works, but it's a bigger one. So that's kind of how we prioritize it. And then we will just take, maybe 2 to 3 at once. Maybe it's one on PDP, one on collections, one on cart or something like that at a time. We kind of consider our landing page stuff separate. But it's all very much the same, integrated. And yeah, so what we'll do is we'll decide if we need to get designed. We'll get it designed internally in Figma. And then what we will do, the CRO team we work with, they'll code that. Either it used to be in Convert or now in Shoplift. And they'll code it there, but they're not actually changing like the actual theme code. So they might make a duplicate. If we then get a winner, we will test that. Then whoever is owning this process right now, it's kind of like our marketing ops team, will then take that information, that code, and then brief our dev agency on that to be able to then say, hey, like this was a winner. We want to deploy this site wide. But yeah, that's kind of where we're going with it. But I want to do a lot more. Like you said, I want to have somebody who's just like pretty much full time, that this is all they're thinking about. I want to have like a UX designer, maybe freelance, maybe internally. And then I also think I want to have like dev. I think just to keep it like lean, we may go, overseas. Maybe it's in addition to the agency, maybe it's instead of, but I think would love to eventually bring some of those pieces internally and just place a much bigger focus on it. Because like you said, it's just, at the amount that we're all spending on paid media and the traffic we have, like if you can actually get these, these lifts over time, it's pretty significant to end of the year.
So you were talking on Twitter about Shoplift this week. You moved from Convert. What sparked that change, and like what are some of the pros and cons?
I like Shoplift. It's really cool. I got it sent to me by like somebody who was thinking about investing in it, and they just kind of had me check it out. You can do a lot with no code. Convert, like I wasn't really able to do much in it. You kind of needed to to no code. I've heard a lot of people like not loving Convert lately, and a lot of people use IntelliGems as well. We've used that in the past. I think, does Ridge use that? What do you guys use?
We're using IntelliGems.
Yeah, I've heard it. I've used it. I think it's really good. What I like about Shoplift, it's very easy to do a lot of things with no code. For example, let's say you wanted to test like hiding a section or adding it. It pretty much duplicates a theme or duplicates like a page. It just like does that. It's because it's built for Shopify. And then you can go into the customizer if you're on 2.0, which hopefully everybody is, and you can just go and hide it or something like that. So I just find that you can do a lot with without needing developer. What I think we're planning to do, because we want to just be able to test as fast as we can and as cheap as we can, is actually we have like a freelance dev who does like rep load dev. So it's almost like Webflow, where it's like they're building things. They're not necessarily writing code. They're doing like drag and drop, but they call it dev. Just to be able to, because you can build like a page for like $150 with like an overseas developer in Replo. And then if it works, then we'll actually get one of our developers to do it. I just find it's like super quick to be able to test, and you don't need code. And I think there's going to be a lot more of those types of tools where, especially with AI coming in, where marketers can do so much more and they don't necessarily need the complete technical background to be able to affect change in some of these things.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. One of our, we have a similar system to you guys. We use IntelliGems, which at least the way we use it is a little more dev heavy. We're like coding new elements and then doing like theme split tests so that we can do different things. But really it's all across the board. It's an incredibly flexible tool. Yeah. But what we actually did on your last point around, something like marketers becoming more empowered, our focus has really been around, and this isn't even explicitly CRO, but building tools for marketers is a phrase I heard recently, which like we've really taken to heart, where it's like, how are we building new components or like web assets in a replicable way? So how do they become tools that we can use for future launches? So all of a sudden, when our marketing ops team needs to bring, XYZ campaign to life, they just have a full set of tools that they have available to them. And then even at that point, we could begin testing against those tools. I'll give you an example. We built a very simple tool called what we call a silhouette selector. So if you're on a PDP, you can typically switch between swatches. You might have another sort of variant that you're flipping between. We built a additional one so you could switch between silhouettes. And that's if you wanted to go from like a royal black classic Ridge wallet to the royal black MagSafe Ridge wallet. And we actually built it to accommodate rings. Rings have all these different sizes. So we built it out so you could switch from 8mm to 6mm to 6mm hammered, et cetera. So now all of a sudden we have this tool that we could use in the future, and it allowed us in the case of MagSafe to drive additional volume and like create this really seamless way to flip between them, which I think has been cool. So like almost decoupling like the design and tech side from like the explicit use case and just ensuring that you're building tools that you can use for long term. That's how we've been thinking about it. But like I said, a lot of those things aren't even CRO. We're not even testing them. We're just trying to like have give ourselves better kind of options for thoughtfully rolling out new campaigns or products.
I love that. I agree with that. All of our landing page testing we do in Replo currently, and yeah, even when we launch, even if it's not a test, but we're just coming out with like a new product launch, we call our main page that we do a Trojan horse, and like we don't need any dev. We'll have our marketing ops team get some images, and we'll just be able to duplicate that page and throw them in there. We have sections already built, and so reduces cost, increases ability to create campaigns and tests. So I couldn't agree more. I think you're going to see more of it. The one I can't wait for is like Figma to dev. Like I know that's not that long away, where you can remove one of those steps out of it and just be able to take a Figma file that somebody designed and like have that be turned into a page or a section automatically.
Yeah, 100%.
How far away is Replo from that?
I know they're working on it. I've seen something else that does it. I think it's called like Instant
Builder.io has a tool like that.
I always found theirs
shitty.
shitty. Builder. I haven't used Builder in a few years. I always found that super buggy. But there's another one. It's called like Instant something. It's new. I know Replo is working on it, and I think that'll be very cool.
Yeah. I and that's what I'm excited about. Like, just if I want to put my team in a position where we could do high volume testing, and I think so much of that is just investing in the tools and workflow. So it's like what Figma components work together. You can drop in new images. For us, we're building custom elements in Shogun. We know how to label those, drag those in, and we could be building out 3 or 4 pages like really seamlessly. Because at the end of the day, like a lot of these CRO wins come from copy. They come from images. They come from like the existence or non-existent of certain components. It's not necessarily like coding something net new each time. So we totally had a bunch of missteps over the years of like not developing things in a way that was replicable, like not having a library of components and like all of a sudden having these disparate pieces between campaigns and pages. And it was like a nightmare. So we've been working through that over the last like 9 months.
What's your team look like that's involved with this?
So we have dev internal. We have an ecom ops manager who assumes some product manager responsibilities, although that's also a role that we've been hiring for. And then we do design internally. And that's really like the 3 key pieces. What I'll also say here is I read a great book. It's super short called Inspired. I'll send it to you guys, but it's about product management and design. And they lay out that team structure. And to your point, Cody, it's like, it's non-hierarchical. Like those people don't report into the product manager. They report into their different teams and they just come together. It's just like cross-departmental workflow. So that's kind of how we've organized it internally. Me and this ops manager are like stringing it together to be PMs, and then we've got dev and design, and we're getting along pretty decently.
That's awesome. And do they report into you?
All those people report into me ultimately. We have a VP of brand, so the designers report into the VP of brand. Our lead developer reports into me, and so does the ecom ops manager.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I feel like I've seen like just site, digital product, whatever you want to call it, reporting to like different places at different orgs. Like Connor said at HexCloud, like reports to CIO. Here I consider it part of marketing, like it kind of, I consider it closer to growth and reports into me as well. But I feel like I've seen it other places at other places.
Dude, it could be. No, yeah. I totally agree. I wasn't going to backtrack all the way back there, but I've had the same sort of like hand wringing around the director of ecom role. It just means like I've talked to people who it's like a super high level marketing. It's the equivalent of like a head of growth or even like a CMO. I've talked to other people where they just run paid social. And it's like, okay, I don't understand how that works. And then, really what we're talking about is like a more traditional PM style role where they have experience working with designers and developers. And that could report to technology. It could report to, I could see it reporting to a COO. Like, I think it could fit a lot of different places in the org chart.
Agreed. I think where you place it probably makes sense because like even like Connor was talking about, it's like your incentives are going to be different on different teams, and like it's got to work so closely with growth, with marketing. versus if they are on another team, they may not care as much as some of the same metrics.
Yeah. Can I ask you guys a quick follow up on the team that you guys have? So you both have the design component internal, that's where we differ a lot, where we're all external on design right now.
We don't have UX design though. I'll say, like, Connor, I don't know if your team is like UX. Like, we have graphic designers, so like there's some frustrations and pulling strings of like, hey, like that's not like UX best practices. So that's a future hire for next year that I'd love to make, is actually somebody, whether they're freelance or not, like an actual UX designer.
Yeah, same boat.
Okay.
Is the web design team their own team, or are they omnichannel? Are they also doing other like email, text, or email, SMS, paid, whatever, or are they straight up web only?
You go.
For us, it's our lead designer. So he's like our most senior designer. He handles a bunch of stuff. But like the main place where he's applying his design skills is on the e-com. And then he's overseeing the two designers who are doing like wholesale catalogs or email design or whatever else. But yeah, he's a multifaceted designer.
That's what we got right now. So we've got two full-time designers on our creative team plus one freelancer. And I want to go in the direction of kind of having design support on every team. Kind of like we have a creative strategist and we have two freelance video editors on the growth team. I want to have a paid social designer on that team because I think they can move faster and just, improve a lot of things by being on that team. And then probably next year, I want this UX designer reporting to our head of ecom, whatever we're going to call that person. But then you got it. There's going to be so many dotted lines because like technically they've got to work with the creative team and the creative department. So there's pros and cons to each setup.
Designers is a tough one. When designers for growth is another tough one. Or like, where do they live under? Who are they dotted to? Depending on where they live. That's an interesting one.
For sure. Yeah. Our creative strategist, not to get off track too much, came to me last week and she was like, hey, our creative director, like, she didn't love this ad I made. And I'm like, I'm cool with it. Like, I'm fine with it. Like, I'm your boss. You can keep it up. Like, our creative director reports to me as well, but it's just kind of like you're saying, like, there's just that friction. It's like, hey, who do I listen to? Who do I go to on this?
We're super excited to talk today about one of our sponsors, Aftersell. All three of us, Jones Road Beauty, Hexclad, and Rich Wallet, are customers of Aftersell. If you're selling on Shopify, you need to find ways to boost your average order value. One of the best ways to do this is cross-selling and upselling, and there are a lot of different ways and places you can do this. One of the best places to do it is right when that conversion is happening, and that is exactly what Aftersell facilitates for you. So what actually is Aftersell? Aftersell is a widget that you install on your website, and on the post-purchase page, right after someone's completed their conversion, they're basically getting this upsell and or cross-sell. It's super seamless. It's one click. And it adds it to the order. They do not have to go through checkout again. It's really just free, not free, but it's incremental revenue that you're getting from someone that's already bought from you. One thing I love about Aftersell is you can decide to optimize it a ton or not at all. Either way, it's going to drive you a ton of incremental revenue. And if you have the team and the bandwidth and you want to optimize it, you can do all sorts of analysis on which products are most likely to be bought with other products, doing those sequential order and market basket analyses. And you can literally build out different funnels, as many as you'd want for different products, depending on what that first ordered product was, and then upsell them super intentionally based on that first order product. So love Aftersell. It's driven 6 figures of incremental revenue for us in a very short period of time. And I highly recommend it. If you want to check them out, head over to aftersell.com.
So on the point of tools, does Convert or Shoplift, is that like the main source of analytics for you guys as well? This is something that I'm completely lost without Universal Analytics, Google Optimize. I'm like totally been thrown out of my Zen state over the last like year or whatever it's been. So what are you guys using for like the true on-site data?
We're using Convert.
And that has pretty good, like it tracks web events. Does it create like Google Analytics segments or anything like that? Like, could you dive any deeper on what people are doing when they're in a given segment?
Yeah, so we have I couldn't speak to like technically how this is set up, but we have some sort of webhook, between Shopify and convert.com. And that's what we're using to report on all of the on-site events that are happening. So it's not like we're not necessarily taking what Convert is telling us the revenue, or AOV or conversion rate is. It's that communicate, that webhook between the two that then's pulling back into Convert. But honestly, that's like the level of like technical understanding I have of it.
So I know when we were on Convert and using Convert, we integrated somehow with GTM and Google Analytics, and so you're able to actually create Google Analytics events that you're able to then see inside Convert. And so yeah, I mean, I personally have never really used Google Analytics as much as everybody else. That might be a hot take, so I don't feel as lost, but we use Convert because of that. And I'm very impressed with Shoplift's functionality. Like you can see, obviously revenue per visitor. You can see based on your GA channel, your default channel grouping. So you can actually break down and see how is this performing overall, but how is this performing new versus returning, obviously mobile versus desktop. But then you can also see paid social, direct, email, any breakdown you have. And so, yeah, that's totally good enough for me.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
How are you doing it?
Intelligence plugs into Google Analytics, so you can create like custom segments. Because like I'll give you an example. Depending on the feature that we want to test, like some of these, the PDP navigation little feature that I mentioned earlier, like we'd want to look at pages per session. Like, are we driving up pages per session? And there's all sorts of like even more like granular events on site that I might want to look at by segment. And Intelligence does it pretty well with GA4, but I'm not happy with GA4. I'm still in the camp. I keep hearing people being like, you just got to learn it. I haven't. So I'm largely just frustrated by the whole thing. What Intelligence does have, which I think is super rad, is they have line item exports. I'm sure Convert has this as well, but what we'll often do with a lot of our testing, we've been doing a lot of price testing and things like that, is we'll export the line items within each segment. So we'll get two cells essentially that have hundreds of orders. We're exporting all those line items, and then we're exploring like the basket analysis between them to see like, what are we adding more of? One of our key things, and I could talk about this later, and one of my favorite tests is like upselling some of our wallet accessories. We have AirTag attachments, a coin tray, we have a bottle opener, things like that are like $10 to $20, but like we end up getting attached to 20 to 30% of orders. So we end up driving like hundreds of thousands of dollars of sales and multi-millions of dollars at the total order level. So being able to break it up by line item has always been really helpful, just to see what customers are actually adding and how all that behavior is happening.
You know what? Another thing I love about Intelligence, they have like the profit or margin testing and tracking. Like we used to use that for like we do price testing, of course, to find like the best gross profit per session. We've done it for price testing with them. Free shipping threshold testing, but also like gift with purchases. I love that. I wish every testing app had that. I think that's genius how they have that built in.
They have, and this can lead into, I was hoping we could just kind of go around the horn a little bit, talk about some other tests that we've ran. We started out with test of the week, but I think we could run through a couple more. Are you guys down with that?
For sure.
Yeah,
for sure. That, and then also just because we just did out like our new roadmap, also maybe some like upcoming ones we're excited about.
Yeah, sweet. Connor Rowland, I think, has 8 in the dock here, so he's stacked. But let me quickly segue into the test I want to talk about, because Intelligence, that's why we chose them. They have a really great price testing tool, which is like, I think, a surprisingly hard thing to test. At least I didn't have a good solution for it for a very long time. You have dynamic prices living all over the site. How are you updating it like seamlessly for half of visitors? So that's why we chose them. That leads to my favorite test we ran last year. Not our most impactful, but I'll give you guys the quick run through. Because it actually starts with like us developing a better understanding for our customers. We have a relatively premium priced wallet in the market. We're not like a Gucci or some other luxury brand like that, but 120, 150 is like by far the most many men have spent on a wallet. So I think we mistook that for a long time as being an invitation to offer like premium priced items. And the example that I'll get to is these aluminum pens that we had for $75, which is like a very expensive pen in the market. We're not quite a tactile turn. They're sitting around like the $100 mark, but like it's a premium price pen, right? And we were doing a couple $100,000 a year in pens. What we decided was, hey, if our core customer isn't necessarily looking for luxury priced everyday carry accessories, where can we test price reductions in order to drive an increase in conversion rate? And the first one that I wanted to test was pens. So we tested 20% reduction in the price of pens. It wasn't a discount. It was just $75 moving to $59. And we used intelligence so that we could populate that all over the site. It's largely a product that we use for retention. So a lot of the traffic directed towards pens is email, SMS, things like that. We've got these reduced prices, 20% decrease. We saw like a 60-70% increase in conversion rate. So not only were we driving a higher number of repeat orders, which is a KPI that I think is worth looking at, but we're also driving a higher revenue per session given the conversion rate increase. And at the end of the day, because of intelligence, we could report all the way down to profit per order. And that also went up. The increase in conversion rate more than makes up for the decrease in margin, moving down 20%. And now we've got a 7-figure pen business. So it's like sub 1% of revenue. But I think more than anything, it was an example to me of how do we go from developing a hypothesis around who our customer is to, matching that across landing pages or messaging or pricing or whatever else. And that ultimately leading to what was a very easy win. Basically 6 figures in profit that we were able to test out, turn on. It's a true set it and forget it. So that's one of my highlights from 2023. The team is incredibly tired of me talking about pens. So thanks for giving me a couple minutes here.
I love that. That's awesome.
That is I'm jumping a little bit ahead here, but that is, I think, one of the most underrated areas of CRO. There is no intelligence makes it so easy to roll out price tests, and there's really no reason to do any guesswork on your price testing. Obviously, you need to be careful about any sort of negative customer experience. If it's a small segment of people seeing the same product and they start talking about oh, you're getting $200 and I'm getting $175. What's up with that? But yeah, there's no reason not to test into the best version of your prices possible these days. It's just really easy with tools like intelligence.
Totally. And that's a super common one. I mean, one of the reasons Ridge has been able to scale is because we've increased prices over time, right? Especially Ridge has been around for 11 years at this point. A dollar's worth quite a bit less than it was in 2013. So just understanding when you have when there's any sort of inelasticity, when you can move pricing up to expand margin, you have a higher AOV, you can tolerate a higher CAC, and given the conversion rate decrease, or there's times where increasing prices will increase your conversion rate, you're netting out positively. So yeah, anyway, one of the most high impact things you do is just change the price. But Connor, what's a highlight from you?
Yeah, I was just spitballing when I was thinking through some of the things we ran that have had a big impact. We've done a lot of we did a lot of price testing on products last year. We generally saw that lower prices than what we kind of gut instinct wanted to offer were better, revenue and contribution margin per user. So chicken fryer was a great example where we lowered price on that and we saw a huge 70% bump in revenue per user. One of the big themes we've seen is that videos on our site have driven some of the largest lifts in our revenue. So yeah, it's crazy. So
where
one
are
of them
they?
is
Are they
this
PDPs?
Yeah, so one of the biggest lifts. So if you go to the 6-piece set, the 6-piece pan set, we have this video carousel. It's powered by this company called Novel. Their value prop is that they create shoppable videos right on your site. So it's this video carousel of 5 or 6 UGC review style videos ranging from, Gordon. Well, one of them's not UGC, it's Gordon kind of doing an X reasons why or explaining the product. But then another one's a UGC from a big creator named Salt Hank. And then we have some kind of everyday creators that don't have cloud. That drove a 20% plus lift in revenue. And then the iteration of that was is it the content that's doing it or is it the actual shoppability component? The non-shoppable actually won out. So purely the social proof content at that point in the funnel drove a huge lift. From there, we tested like these product type reels on our product pages. So now if you go to like, they're not on every product page because we're still shooting them, but if you go to like the pizza steel or the double burner griddle, you'll notice that we have this little thumbnail in the like one of the corners of the hero image. You click on it, it expands, and it's just a really nice product explainer. What we dub internally as hype reels. Those have driven a really nice lift. So that's kind of our priority right now is continuing to test
that one that you just
experience.
Yeah, the one that you just described, like the little thumbnail it's in the carousel basically, and then it expands a video. Is that through Novel also?
That is not through Novel. That is just built out, custom. So if you go to like the Pizza Steel, you'll see that.
And what was the thought process there? Did you guys start with, hey, we're seeing this lift from video via Novel? Like, how can we better prioritize video on the PDPs? Just drive more eyeballs to it?
Yeah, exactly. Like we were holy, like that's crazy. That it drove that much of a lift, and we had all these really beautifully shot product videos that, in my opinion, we just weren't using well enough. And then, as I was going through these product pages, kind of like road mapping, like what could drive a lift here, I'm like, these videos give a way better product experience than any of these static images possibly could. And I think it's so good that we should test it above the fold. And it, we did it on the double burner griddle. It's like an 8% lift in revenue per user. So now we're rolling it out in other places. We're actually testing into like V2 of this, where it's like, where is this video best kept? Is it like, should we maybe make it like a hero video on the product collection, or do we actually have it on the product page itself? So that's like a multivariate test that we're rolling out now. So yeah, video experiences for us. And now we're like kind of memorializing that and making sure that as we design new parts of our site and new landing pages, that we're designing these, like we're building aprons right now. We're making sure we have, really good aprons, video experiences on that landing page. That's another page where we, have that product video on the hero carousel. And now every time we do a new product, it's like a standard part of our stack that we schedule a product hype reel day to get that shot so we can roll it out. So that was one of the biggest themes I would say over the last year, is these video experiences driving really awesome lifts.
Yeah, that's awesome. So next we're going to talk about two things: customer service and artificial intelligence. Our next sponsor, Richpanel, is a platform that combines the best of AI and humans to respond faster, manage all channels, and scale your customer service. They do this in a number of different ways, but their ultimate goal is for you to get every agent responding as if they're your best agent. First, my favorite part, which actually isn't AI related, is better self-serve tools so that your customers and prospects can find the information they need without ever submitting a ticket. But when they do submit a ticket, they have artificial intelligence that learn from your previous interactions. So it's not a chat GPT wrapper that's just going to rattle off whatever it thinks is the best way to respond to a customer. It's actually going to understand what are historical interactions you've had to recommend and automate the responses to customers submitting new tickets, as well as new ways to augment your current agents so that they can respond more efficiently and empathetically. If you're interested in Richpanel and bringing AI to your customer service teams, visit richpanel.com. One of the brands that I look to constantly for CRO inspiration is Nectar Mattress. I've probably talked about them before. Because they're one of my favorite brands. They do over $1 billion a year. They got bought by Ashley Furniture a couple months ago. But they really prioritize video like across their PDP. It makes total sense. I mean, it is funny how dynamic content has become across social platforms. Like the average content that people are consuming, it like the vast majority of websites are just static images. So
Yeah.
I'm not surprised you're able to see a lift on that.
A lot of what I learned about CRO was from a consultant who was ex-Nectar, not surprisingly. We worked with HexCloud worked with this growth consultant for a while, and part of that was like when I started internally, and he was working a lot on our CRO. So I think they do a great job.
Yeah, nice. So Cody, are you guys thinking about video on site at all?
I was just about to say, I'm making a note to say test more video. No, we haven't much. I think probably just because we haven't tested it, and I think it would be interesting to hear how you guys think about roadmap. But definitely after this, I am. That's super interesting. One that we had. This is a very counterintuitive one. Like obviously we've tested all the basic things, like so much on our collections pages. Like, do we have call to actions or not? Do you enable quick shop or not? reviews and stuff like that. Like we've tested all that. One of to me, the most fun ones we've had, I saw Kizik had a returns and exchange page in their desktop nav, and I thought that was really interesting. And so we tested that, and that was actually a bigger one where we just took a big swing and we had to get a whole page designed and then dev'd and built out. So it took a few weeks. That was one of the bigger lifts we've had. I think that was like a 20, maybe a 19% lift in conversion rate by adding this page on our nav that's returns and exchanges, and just showing people how easy it is to return things if they don't like them. 30 days to a refund, 45 days to exchange, shows them how to do it. It's got links to Loop. It's got social proof. It's got quotes of people specifically talking about how great and easy our return process was. And then linking to the quiz, because for us selling makeup online, people's biggest objection is just like, hey, am I gonna like my shade? Like, am I gonna be enjoying the experience of buying it online? And so that's one I haven't seen a lot of people do, but that was a fun one.
I think that's so funny because how many times, like I know whenever I think the return funnels are hilarious to me, because you'll go to these sites and they make it so hard to find. They like make the color like one gradient darker than the background color. Like they won't underline it. They'll make it like not intuitive that you're clicking on it. It's hilarious how like gray hat these brands get with how they design their return flows. So I'm happy to see that you're winning by being very upfront with it and like putting your best foot forward. That's like that's a checkbox for humanity and e-commerce.
I appreciate that. Yeah. You know what's funny though about CRO? I don't know if you guys have felt like this. So many of the best practices that you would think is just like, hey, I'm just going to do that thing, they really haven't worked. Like for us, like on our quiz, that we drive to, after our landing page, having a header beats having no header on that for us. And like we've tested that one multiple times, and I think everybody's like, you've got to have no header.
Yeah.
Right? I remember one time I posted like one of our main landing pages on Twitter just asking for feedback, and like everyone had the same one. Like our hero was too condensed or too long, so you couldn't see the main copy on it, like above the fold. So I'm like, all right, we tested a shorter version of it, performed worse, like significantly worse, by bringing things up and condensing the image and having it above the fold. So
do you mean
I feel
web
like this
header? Like not having it, like giving people the ability to like click all the different links in the header, as opposed to having it be like more of a closed funnel where they're kind of forced into the quiz.
Yeah, on quiz.
Yeah.
So definitely for us on our landing page that we send to, having what we call a faux header or a faux nav works best. So it's sticky. It actually has a hamburger button on mobile, but that if you click the hamburger button, it just opens up a CTA. But we've tested, and that beats having an actual header on the landing page for us, having no header at all, or having a sticky header without that hamburger for whatever reason. So we do that, but then for whatever reason, again, when the call to action on the page is take the quiz, when we drive to the quiz, then it performs better to have an actual header where people has a full nav and people can shop around and go to different sections, versus kind of doing the more direct response by the book, funneling them to where you want them to go.
Yeah, we found the same thing. Like anytime
Really?
it's anytime with landing pages that it's we always try to make the experience as normal as possible. We just like we tested this with our pizza steal lander, where we were sending folks right to checkout, and then we rolled out a cart on the page, and it like was orders of magnitude better performing than the one that went right to checkout. It's like our customer hates anything that's not a traditional web experience.
What's your average age?
We're pretty split, honestly, across the board. Like that's one of the benefits of our vertical. Like our TAM's massive, but most of it's in the 40 to 55 range. That makes
sense. I mean, we're same. Yeah, we're same. I think. Yeah, for us, longer funnel does better. That's why we send to our quiz after it. But we tested from our landing page, going to PDP after it, going straight to checkout, going straight to cart, or going to quiz. The longer we make that funnel, usually the better for us.
Yeah.
And especially with your AOV as well. I'm not surprised either.
That's what I'm saying. I want to keep people, I don't want to send them right to checkout. Like I want to keep them shopping, because all of a sudden, if I can get first order AOV up on that pizza steal, then I have more money to spend on ads and better, a higher blended CAC that I can tolerate.
For sure. But I would have thought, right, before we tested ours, I would have thought that going from our landing page straight to cart or checkout would have converted better conversion rate, but lower AOV. And it actually converted worse as well. So yeah.
That doesn't surprise me too much either. We've seen the same thing with like header, no header, stuff like that. Like we
You guys run
tend
header
to-
in your landing pages too.
We do run header, and we copied your years ago. I remember really admiring your guys' faux header. I thought that was really cool. We tested that. Like, didn't really make a big difference. We just rebuilt our navigation. That's actually, I think, like an underrated form of CRO. Is like, how do you improve that? Like, we make it more visual. We made it more nested, just so people could better navigate to where they wanted to go. Because, I mean, and honestly, like we test enough across all our different product categories and like the different funnels within those. We should probably be testing header, faux header, no header more often. But we've just found like people are coming, they want to explore the site. We don't have as like singular of a purchase that we're trying to drive. We've got between NFL, MLB, all of our classic wallets, all the accessories, different categories. We do end up seeing better performance, letting people navigate, and that's just what we want to better facilitate.
All right, I got some questions on it because I'm on your nav right now, and I've noticed it before, and I've admired yours. But like, tell us the story of like the last like your iterations of that and how you've gotten to where you are. Like, what have you found? Like, the two things I think are really interesting. One, we talked about these like call outs, like new styles added, brand new. But I also like that you have essentially two different sizes. You've got your main, so you've really got three. You got Father's Day sale up top, that's pretty big. You've got wallets, everyday carry, it's like decently big, almost like an H2. And then you've got like gift card support, like that's all like below it, lower. Is that so? I'm curious, like what you've tested to get it to there.
Well, yeah. So this is what I'll say is, and again, this isn't even CRO. This is us just making like intuitive updates based on customer feedback. But we went through this really funny thing where like when I first joined Ridge, no users would use the search bar because we had like 12 wallets. It was like you could find exactly what you were looking for without having to type like Ridge wallet into the search bar. And then over the last 2 years, we launched rings, we launched travel, we launched dozens more new wallet styles. And then it wasn't until like October last year, all of a sudden people were like, hey, we have no search bar. And I'm like, you even had a search bar for like 2.5 years. But we now have the breadth of product that we obviously need to better support navigation. So like we add the search bar back. And then the other thing there was just adding more like hierarchy to the navigation. So like, how are we pushing people through different product categories or product types or silhouettes within that, to just make it a little bit more intuitive. So the biggest ones are like wallets for us actually fit underneath everyday carry. Everyday carry can be key organizers, pens, phone cases, carabiners, wallets, etc. It could technically fit under the everyday carry category, but obviously products are an important enough product that it gets its own like H2 in the navigation. And then once you click into wallets, you can shop between NFL, MLB. We have new and limited editions. We have MagSafe wallets. We have all wallets, etc. So, and we have more wallet silhouettes coming out this year. So like, how do we just give ourselves the tool and the resources to create a somewhat intuitive navigation? So that's how we got to where we are now. Our previous one was just way more flat. It was basically like a long list of stuff with no hierarchy, and it was going to be completely unsustainable with the amount of products that we wanted to launch. So that's how we got there. This one's only 2 or 3 months old or something. It was launched sometime in Q1. So we haven't done all that much testing within this new one, but that's kind of the logic that got us to where it is now.
I love that. That's really cool. So these like the new styles added are brand new. These like orange calls. Is that something you guys tested or just added?
No, just added. Just like how do we continue to provide more context to users so that they can more quickly find what they need?
All right. So I've got a question for both of you guys. How do you decide on what you can just add to your? This will be really interesting. This one. How do you decide on what you can just add to your site and make a change on versus what are you like? No, I need to test this before putting it up.
Yeah, I was gonna say I have no hard and fast rule here. Like for us, we redesigned the whole menu navigation and then we A/B tested that. So like the flares, we had flares in our previous one too. So like we didn't test the existence of flares or not. We just kind of took like what we found to work in the previous one along with the new like hierarchy and structure, and then we A/B test between the whole of those. But I totally hear your point where like within the new one, we could have tested like a million other things. So at some point you have to make like the editorial decision.
No, I'm not even making a point. Like I'm genuinely trying to learn. Like I don't have the answer to that either. Like what are
it sounds like for the big,
no, I'm not going to this guy.
So you tested this massive swing, right, Connor? Like a whole redesign on your nav that you tested, you found that this new version outperformed, and then you had some like aesthetic experience based things that you're like, okay, I think if we added like new styles, brand new and orange with white colorway, that would be a better experience. You just added that. You didn't test into that, but like you did test into the overall big swing of like this old version versus this like completely new version, right?
Right. Yeah. That's where we decided to test it. And there were lots of like, again, I think it sounds like more of an editorial decision. Like someone at the end of the day has to decide like what is or isn't worth testing. What is too big of a swing to risk not testing? Because other things we almost test everything else. I would say that we add. There are very few things where I'm like, oh yeah, let's just send it.
I think we have a similar approach. Like we actually used the Ridge product page. Like I did not like how our product page shop section was set up last year. It was way too much information in your face. So we then rolled out collapsible expandable, and we did test that versus the previous version. But now from there, it's like, okay, we tested in this better version that is both better performing and just from a, gut feel, aesthetic, editorial standpoint, we all like it better. We now want to add, like we have this what's included section that right now is like part of that what's included section is people can slide through their bundle products one by one, but it also has some copy that says like what, the 12-inch pan is good for and what the 2-core pot is good for. I want to update that imagery to be lifestyle imagery and show that, not just have it be a bullet point. I don't think we need to test into that. We already tested into this just complete different version, and I think that's just a better experience. Maybe I will, because I do like to quantify as much as possible, but I don't think I need to test into that. And it's kind of similar to you adding some like, exclamation points and bells and whistles onto this new nav that you have, which is also, by the way, like our 100, like my number one priority for our CRO right now is like this new mobile and desktop navs with a much better breadcrumbs. I love how you guys have your organized. I look at your guys a lot. I like Caraway's a lot. I think Durf's Avenue has really good breadcrumbs, and we're testing into better versions now that we have more and more product categories. I think ours is just not cutting it.
Yeah, cool.
All of us are Haus customers and very big fans. In fact, I've actually been told I talk about Haus more than my own daughter. So what is Haus? Haus is a marketing science and experimentation platform that enables you to measure true incrementality and allocate budget efficiently to maximize growth and profitability. Haus allows you to comprehensively measure your marketing across all channels to measure the true incremental impact of all of your channels on retail, Amazon, DTC, etc. Haus allows you to design and launch experiments in minutes and get results in as little as 2 weeks. So we are all actual customers of Haus. We all use it. I actually got both Connors onto it. I was just such a big fan, and I just couldn't help but share some of the tests that we were running. And I thought it was super cool. And I knew we had a group chat going, and I knew that both of these guys were spending on a lot of different, channels and platforms. And we were all looking at things similarly, but really looking to kind of take a step up. So yeah, if it's good enough for me to sell these guys on it, I think it's good enough for you guys to try out.
As you can tell, we could do a whole episode about Haus, and we probably will at some point, but this is just the ad read. So if you want to add marketing rigor to your organization and make the most impact with your spend, go to haus.io/operators. That's HAUS.io/operators to learn more. I wrote this down. It doesn't really fit into the conversation, but Cody, you had mentioned a lot of the like basic CRO, like the optimizations that people make that like often don't work. And then you brought up the headers. I had the opposite experience recently where our chief legal officer sent me an article on the dark patterns in web design. And I was going through those and I'm like, yeah, these all sound like they would work. I've seen a lot of these.
Dark
It was
patterns.
Yeah. It was like, all the auto checked boxes, like the subscriptions that you're like forcing people into, the products that you're auto adding to cart and hiding. And,
the impossible to find cancel my subscription button.
Yeah. Like de-optimization to some
all
degree.
the growth
Yeah. And she sent the article. She's like, we're not doing any of this, right? And I'm like, dude, I wish we could.
No, we're not now, but we will soon.
It's just the good stuff. But no, yeah. I've got one more test that I'd love to tell you guys about.
Let's hear it.
All right. This isn't another old one. It's around upselling products, which is like really has a very simple premise. I mentioned the wallet accessories that get attached to a really high percentage of orders. And the first one we ever launched was it was called the coin tray, and we still have it. And it's just like this little kind of cavity card that can hold like keys, guitar picks, coins, whatever. It slides right into your Rich wallet. And it was the first ever thing that we launched that really complemented the wallet. This was many years ago. So we kind of naturally saw a high attachment of it. And we would mark it down when you were checking out with a wallet. So instead of $25, you'd get it for I don't know exactly what it was. Yeah, 25 to 17, something like that. And we'd get attached to a certain amount of orders. And what we actually found was the people who added the coin tray then converted at a higher rate, which makes sense for a number of reasons. One, they're like getting a better deal. They might feel that they're getting more value for their order that day. And then two, I think there's really something important about it, alleviating some concern of the wallet. A big thing for us is like education and de-risking the product. The vast majority of people buying Ridge wallets have never used a slim minimal metal wallet before. So as much as we can do to help like alleviate any concerns around that purchase, the better. And the coin tray is one of them. So we saw all these people adding the $17 coin tray, and the people that did add it would then convert at a higher rate. So I forget the exact numbers, but you could say 14% of people would add it. They'd convert it 30% higher. So we'd end at like 20% of all orders would include this coin tray. And what we did, and we're also getting a higher AOV on those orders, obviously. What we did was we actually discounted it further. And we saw the attachment rate go up, and we saw the higher conversion rate sustain even on a higher number of orders. So it's like my second favorite order. That's why, or my second favorite test. That's why I'm bringing it up, because it essentially allows us to sell more wallets. It's a $12 coin tray instead of 17, but by increasing the conversion rate and increasing the AOV, we've not only generated a ton in coin tray revenue, but we've also sold it's not millions of more wallets at this point, but we've sold thousands and thousands of more wallets at this point because we decreased the upsell by $5 or something. And I just think like those sorts of really granular optimizations are what I find the most interesting.
Yeah. That's the key, right? Like you have two levers, it's AOV and conversion rate. In that scenario, you achieve both. So that's like the gold standard, right? Is you improve conversion rate and average order value.
Right. Or we decrease the AOV of the people adding the upsell item slightly, right? Because you go from like having a $17 one to 12, but if that attachment rate is going up 20-25%, you're like net increasing revenue per session. And then you're also increasing conversion rate on a larger percentage of those orders. So I just think that's one of the cooler ones in my opinion, where to your point, you're increasing AOV on more orders. That's what's happening there. And you're increasing the conversion rate. It's just like a massive win.
Yeah. And I think that's like, for the listeners out there, I think that should be like the underlying goal of any of your hypotheses, right? Like me rolling out new mobile navs by having a cleaner, like breadcrumb from highest level to point of conversion. I think I'm going to increase conversion rate because it's going to be easier for people to find the products they want. By rolling out Aftersell, I'm going to improve revenue per user because I'm going to increase average order value. Like typically it's one or two of them. Maybe it's both at times, but usually it's like those tests are geared towards one or the other. And that's what's kind of going to take that revenue per user up for you.
Yeah, 100%. Connor, was there any other? You've got a long list here. Any others you want to walk us through?
No, I think we should come back to CRO and like get real deep on some of the fun stuff we're doing. Cause I think that's the cool part about CRO is you can do massive swings. Like, hey, we're going to redesign our whole mobile nav, and it's a huge swing. It's a ton of variables changing. We're going to test it against the old one. And then there's these other things that you can get super, super granular. Like we rolled out a variant selector last year, and that was a really important test for us because it's a way better experience and it drove a lift in conversion rate. But we also tested that against, 3 other variants of that. It was like a drop down. It was the one that is like shows all the variants up front. I think there was 2 versions of each. I think it's fun to think about like the scale of, on one end of the spectrum being huge, big swings. But then the other end of the spectrum, this is why I love CRO so much, is it's post-click. It's such a controlled environment. So like you can really test some of the most minute, like the smallest, tiniest things, which is often not a good idea. You often should be focused on the big swings, but I think it is fun at times. It makes sense to test those little details, because the insights you get that you can memorialize across your entire marketing stack from things like that is second to none. Just because of the outside of like holdout testing, post-click testing is probably the most, scientifically controlled way to test for an e-com brand. So I think we could probably do another episode and just like run through the gamut of tests that we've ran in the last, year or however many long, and just talk about why we did it and what we found.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
That I think that's a really good point, because like if you run, like I'm just looking at our site now to think of some like the tiny details we've tested. Let's say like for us on our PDB, having like 30-day guarantees has performed really well. We've seen that. But if you run an ad with and without 30-day guarantees, there are so many factors there. I think it's nearly impossible, unless you're running like an A/B test in platform on Meta, which I don't know anyone that does. It's really impossible. There's so much noise. It's very hard to say that we know for certain that this is actually the variable that's changing, versus like you said on CRO, it is very scientific, and you're able to then get that clarity, which then you can take, your social team can take that, your email team can take that, your ad team can take that to actually say, hey, we know our customers care about this. Let's go do more of that. Every landing page we build, every PDP we build. So that's a really good point, I think.
Yeah, totally. So, Cody, you've been teasing the roadmap. What are you guys thinking about?
I want to ask, I'll share. I want to ask like just like how you guys generally think about coming up with things. Right now, I mean, we're coming off Memorial Day, and so everything is gearing up for Black Friday, and we've got a lot that we want to do and test. So we're just thinking of different pages. We're probably going to start a little bit on the lower effort things, try to get some high impact. For us, it's just a lot of very simple things that have probably been overlooked. Like it's as small as like on our desktop nav, like when you scroll over the different options, like there's no hover state. So adding something like that, testing that slightly bolder, testing our swatches on PDPs a little bit bigger, testing our in-cart upsells a little bit bigger. We just tested and moved, and on desktop, our sliding cart didn't go all the way up. So adding a full bleed just to give those upsells a little bit more room to breathe. So a lot of ours are almost like quality of life, like UX improvements that'll just make things a little bit easier to digest. But I want to do a pretty large PDP overhaul. I don't know if you guys have ever gotten this state where we've tested so many little things individually that it almost feels like we're at like a weird Frankenstein state, where it's like you test one thing and then you move it around, and then 5 tests later, you like almost don't recognize your PDP. But I think there's a lot that we can lay out a lot of that information that people are searching for a lot better. So that's another thing that we're going to test, is just we've got things in those those drop down navs, and they've got to be clicked into. And if we know that a lot of people are clicking on it, how can we just make it so that information is readily available and they can see it a lot easier? So there's a lot. Definitely nav. We haven't really touched our nav, but we've got some like null tests, like some that haven't necessarily worked, a lot of like the image style. But I do think there's a lot more there that we want to do. But yeah, just like the simple ones, like making swatches bigger, making font black instead of gray. Like don't overlook like the really easy, simple ones too.
Totally. Now, we talked about this in our chat earlier this week, but it sounds like you guys are thinking about revamping the cart. We haven't brought up the cart at all, which is probably like one of the highest leverage places to test.
Yeah. I mean, we're custom. Just a new CRO guy we started working with, like, I was surprised, but he was actually recommending using an app like a Rebuy or an up cart or something like that. And so I was just curious, like, what you guys did, but yeah, we've always gone custom, but we are testing quite a bit in cart.
Yeah, I think the cart's really cool. We're gonna roll out. This is one of the ones that like everybody does. So you'd hope it works, but we're gonna launch like a true progress bar, have some sort of like escalating order value discount with a gift with purchase. We'll roll out in Q3.
Oh, cool.
So that's one of the big ones for us. We've spent a lot of time like building out modals. So like, how do we recommend as relevant of products in the cart? We have all these like matching materials and things. Like, how are we building the tool set in order to do that? But we haven't really fully embraced the like spend an extra $50 and get 10% off, which is one of those. Could potentially be super high leverage.
Have you guys tested a lot in checkout too? We've done pretty much nothing. Partly I found it harder to test, I know, but like I think now we have an ability to test a lot of things like HexCloud. I feel like you guys have a lot, like very customized checkout. Have you guys tested a lot in checkout?
Yeah, we tested a ton into it last year. That's one that we like iterated into over and over and over again. So we tested into this like at the top, you see the HexCloud and like the 24,000 reviews, lifetime warranty, free standard shipping. We tested into that method or that messaging. And then you'll also notice we have a bunch of like Gordon Ramsay social proof at our checkout. I don't think it's on the Shop Pay version, but it's on like the traditional checkout methodology. And that was one that we tested into with like 3 or 4 consecutive tests where we were testing. First off, it was like Gordon social proof versus press hits versus customer social proof. Then we found Gordon to win out. Then we tested into like different formats of Gordon, like with an image of him, without, with a quote, without. And we tested in this version that's like an image of him with a quote under it. And so we did a lot of that last year. We're not currently making moves there because we feel like we've tested into a pretty good version of it. Maybe we'll revisit it at some point. We're really focused on the nav stuff. And then we rolled out a bundle builder not too long ago, and we're testing all sorts of, small little details on that bundle builder now, like how we message it. Do we have a start screen or not? Like how large should the products be in the mobile frame? Like where should price live on that? So we have a bunch of like tiny little minutia tests right now. And we also did test into some cart pieces. Like if you if you have an empty cart, we tested into some like social proof and product, like I guess it's not even upselling because it's an empty cart, but like you'll notice like we have some press hits down here. We have like a 3 product grid that we tested into. So we have tested into some things like that as well on the cart.
Nice. I'm pulling up the empty. Oh yeah. Dude, that's awesome. Somebody called us out on that a while back and we never fixed it, but like our empty cart state is like really boring. It just like navigates you a couple other places. Your guys' looks awesome.
Yeah, I think it turned out good. I still think I even look at my cart now though, or our cart now with products in it. I'm like, God, there's a lot more we could probably be testing into here. But that's the thing about CRO. Yeah. You can spin yourself into these like crazy, like there's so much to be done on the website that you could do. And like, yeah, it's crazy.
Well, with that being said, there like you can test everything, but you can't test everything at once. How do you go about thinking about it? How do you what do you recommend if somebody's listening, and is trying to figure out where to test? Like, what do you guys look at? Do you look at, recordings? Do you look at GA, funnel behavior? I'm very curious what you guys look at to go about thinking about this is something we want to test versus not.
We will look at like GA, like time on site. We'll also look at like clarity to see how people are interacting with the page, to see if we should move things around. A lot of it's gut instinct. A lot of it's like, we think that this is a better experience by doing this. So let's test it out and see if we're right. Like that was the novel video test where I'm like, this is just a better, like we have a $700 product. If we can have people reviewing the product right at that point of conversion, like I just, how could that not improve conversion, right? And now that we've gotten these insights on video, we've had like consistent wins with video. Now like our whole strategy, or not whole strategy, but a huge part of it's built around video experience. So like you got to take your learnings and like find those themes and those trends and have that inform your future strategy. And then like the balance of like big swings versus small swings, like we're going to rework our desktop nav. That is going to take weeks to design because it's going to be very different than what it is now. I don't want to slow down on testing. So like, let's get some of those like more kind of like, all right, we tested into we had a big swing that we tested into. Now let's take some like little swings in the meantime to keep improving that while we we work on this bigger swing that's going to take more time. So I think having a good balance to make sure that you're constantly finding, improvements, and you're not like pausing on tests just because you're in the middle of designing, 3 massive swings across 3 different pages on your site. Like you got to find that balance between like what's something we can design and roll out in a 2-day clip while we design this new desktop nav that's going to take 2 to 4 weeks to design.
Yeah, I'd say a lot of similar points. Like when I think about some of the wins that we've found, it's identifying some form of behavior that we could lean into further. So like, I'll give an example. We rolled out personalized logo plates for our carry-ons. So we have these like little embedded like aluminum plates that the carry-ons come with our logo on it. And then we sell additional ones that you can personalize. The UX around getting a carry-on and a personalized logo plate is horrendous. And yet we see it attached to like 5 to 7% of orders. So it's like, oh, if we can build out a better feature to allow someone to personalize the logo plate and then add both the carry-on and that logo plate to their cart at once, we could probably like quadruple this. Clearly people want these things together. Now, like, how do we better support that from a UI, UX perspective? What tech do we have to develop to do that? that goes back to all of mine. That's like, what did we learn about how price sensitive our customers are and why we launched a pen price test? We saw people buying the coin tray and converting at a higher rate. So how do we get more people to add the coin tray? I think that's just like extrapolating what is already a seemingly positive behavior. And then the other ones, like to Connor's point around video, it's like, you just got to try stuff. I think there's a lot of like intuition that can lead to those. Like my point earlier, like people are consuming a lot more video. I'd imagine they'd want to consume it on your site. That seems like a perfectly reasonable hypothesis. If the test ends up being, hey, we're going to install a new Shopify app and then, A/B test it in Shoplift or Intelligems. It's like, that is actually a relatively low lift, high impact sort of test. So some balance of the two.
Yeah, same here. Combo of, I don't watch recordings that often, but I like heat maps. I think heat maps are pretty cool. Just try to see what are people clicking on, like, and just trying to think like, hey, what information are they looking for that I don't necessarily like? I'm not doing a great job giving them. And then I think I don't look that much at like the GA, funnel data. But a lot of intuition, just like, hey, this doesn't look like a very good experience. This is probably not the best way to lay this out. And then I think the biggest one, as you guys both said, like your prior test, just like learning and trying to piggyback off of a lot of the recent ones.
Yeah. So one of ours is, I guess, like basket analysis. How do you guys do that?
We'll use we use our CDP decile to basically say like, hey, if someone bought the 12-piece set on their first order, like what are they most likely to buy? And it's not even, I guess it's more sequential order analysis. And then it's like, hey, if they bought this on their sequential orders, what are the top like 10 products they're buying? And then we're doing that for all of our core products. Like, all right, 7-piece knife set, that's going to look very different likely than the 12-piece set. And then we can kind of use that to inform all sorts of things. We can use it to inform what we put in Aftersell, but also what we put, because we have upsells from the product page on, we have upsells. And like, okay, so how do we use that information to inform what we're upselling? Because like if I let's say I upsell the same 2 products on the product page, and let's say the 7-piece set, and I'm like, okay, through decile, I understand what the next 2 most likely bought products are. Thus, I'm probably going to try to upsell those at least on the product page, maybe on the product page and in cart. But if they've made it to checkout and they haven't bought those yet, well, I probably don't want to try to upsell them on it again, because chances are they've seen it. So now maybe I'll go to products 3 and 4, and then maybe an Aftersell I'll go to products 5 and 6. So yeah, we're just using our CDP to do that. I think Decile is a pretty powerful tool, and they have an awesome customer success team to help you navigate their platform. So we'll do a lot of like looks and slices of the data like that.
Yeah, awesome. All right, guys. Do we want to call it an episode? Any closing comments as it relates to conversion rate optimization?
That was great. I would love to do another one where we just like, I think we set the groundwork there. I think it'd be fun to come back and just be like, here's what we're testing right now. Here's what we're finding. Here's our roadmap, and just like go really, I think it's fun to talk about the actual tests that we're running and why we're running them, and then what the results are eventually.
Yeah. Many more episodes on CRO or GPRO. I like GPRO.
Yeah. I don't think that one's going to catch on.
Awesome. All right. We'll call it. All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining episode 10 on conversion rate optimization. Make sure to send it to your favorite director of e-commerce or product manager or senior director of digital product or the long list of web CRO related jobs that are out in the e-com industry right now. Like and subscribe yourself. We would appreciate it. And as always, thank you to our sponsors, Motion, Aftersell, Haus, and Richpanel.